Welcome back, everybody. It is the PDPreps podcast. We're recording this at noon. It is January 30th. Kienan and Jordan Lattimore here as always. Good pod for you guys this week. I know it's been a couple weeks since we've checked in with everyone, but yeah, I mean, lots happened the last couple weeks. So yeah, we're gonna break it all down today. Basketball, soccer, kind of updates where things stand. This is the last week of the regular season. For basketball league play, and then soccer following week we'll wrap up, and then NCS playoffs are 3 weeks away, right around the corner. Wrestling is going to be wrapping up, league dual meets too this week. Yeah, lots of stuff to get to, and yeah, we're also gonna talk about the new kind of big broad change in the NCS that happened last week. Anyway, big pod coming up. We'll dive into it all, but boys, how we doing today? Last couple of days here in January. I know the month's kind of flown by here, but yeah, how we doing?
Jordan, you can go first.
I'm feeling great, man. We're already a month into 2024. I felt like we just got here, man. We're already getting here in February, getting close into in the basketball playoff season. Soccer kind of wrapping up as well. So it's things are flying by, man. But I'm hanging in there for sure.
Yeah, definitely echo those sentiments. I definitely thought that I thought we thought the fall season went by pretty quick, but this one's going like crazy fast. Yeah, crazy fast for whatever reason. But yeah, man, it's crazy. We're already at this point, but we're doing good, man. Miss talking to you boys every week. Have to wait every other week now, but we're back, man. But I do like this because we got a lot to talk about. So Gus, I'll let you get right into it.
Yeah. So we'll kind of get into all the updates about what's happened in in the last couple weeks in basketball and soccer here in a bit. But we're gonna start with the new NCS playoff model. Yeah, if you weren't aware, I mean, this this segment might be a little inside baseball for a lot of people, but I think for people who listen to this pod and watch this pod, it's like you're pretty well versed in the high school sports scene around here. So maybe this is up your alley. But this will affect pretty much every almost all the sports, all the team sports around the area. So it's important, I think, to touch on because next year it's like playoffs are going to be a lot different around the NCS, and people might be like, what the hell happened? And well, we're telling you now. So last Friday, NCS formally passed, a change to its playoff model. They're going to be adopting a competitive equity model, which depending on where you are in the state is either it's a scary term or it's a positive term. It's a very kind of I don't know, I guess a firebrand or a controversial, whatever you want to call it.
Mixed emotions.
Mixed emotions. Thank you. Yeah, it's pros and cons to it for sure. But this is this is the model that most of the sections in the state use for their playoffs, and then also same thing in the CIF state playoffs. So when St. Vincent, a school of less than 200 kids was playing a school of 2,000 kids in Palo Alto, that's competitive equity for you right there. Basically what it is instead of instead of the playoffs being decided by, I guess the divisions of the playoffs being decided by your results from the last couple of years, the divisions will now be decided based on your record and your rating for that current season. So they're going to seed it out based on essentially the power rankings of every season. So again, pros and cons to this for sure. There are lots. This is, there's no perfect system, I'd say. No perfect system at all. This will negatively impact some teams, positively, impact others. It'll be kind of it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out in the NCS, but we do have a lot of data kind of from other sections that have done this, that we can kind of, examine and take a look at and just, maybe kind of see and project out how this all works. But all this will be taking effect for next school year. So, football playoffs, volleyball playoffs, a lot of these sports will be, we'll be having a new kind of set of divisions and playoff models. So, all right, let's break it down though. So the way it works is it's a bit of a model between, again, it's Still some elements of the outgoing NCS model and of the CCS model with competitive equity. So all these teams will be broken up into base divisions based on their enrollments. Every sport's also different. So volleyball and football will have different enrollments for Division 2 or Division 3. Again, this is kind of complicated, but we'll try to keep it as simple as possible here. But we'll just kind of take a look at football, I guess, for an example here. So again, all of these sports or all of these teams, will be broken up into base divisions based on their enrollment. And then again, come playoff time, that's when the reseeding will kind of happen into divisions. So, locally, for example, Casa Grande, Napa, Ukiah, all of those schools will have enrollments big enough to be placed into a Division 2 for their base division. But come playoff time, the way that it will work is, let's say your rating isn't very good. Well, then you could drop all the way down into a Division 4 for the playoffs if you're one of those schools. Division 3, American Canyon, Maria Carrillo, Montgomery, Rancho Cotati, Santa Rosa, Vintage, Windsor, all of those schools could drop all the way down to Division 5 or all the way up to Division 1. So this is a thing too where, for the playoffs, you'll be seated kind of based on your rating with Cal Preps or Max Preps. There's kind of a rating or a ranking system in there, using a computer algorithm that's going to be used pretty heavily in deciding these ratings and these rankings. So that will be, an important number to kind of keep an eye on as seasons go on. Like I mentioned about kind of going up and down divisions too, the NCS has also capped the movement for your division to 2. So if you're Division 5, the highest you can go is Division 3, or the lowest you can go is Division 7. Same thing with like Division 3, highest you can go is Division 1, lowest you can go is Division 5. The other change too is that the NCS can pull teams from any of the 6 divisions up into the open division as well. So that's going to be the top 8 teams, in the rankings or in the ratings. So for example, let's take a Marin Catholic team. For their base division, they'd be in Division 6, because of, their enrollment for a small school. Now, based on their rankings in Cal Preps and Max Preps, they would, for last year's playoffs, they would have gotten pulled up all the way into the open division, playing against your De La Salles, your San Marins, who I guess they already played in the league. But, again, playing the best of the best from the section. So that'll be an interesting change for sure. And again, this is, the detractors and the people who are in favor of this will kind of point to examples like that of saying like, hey, we're now going to have maybe some less quality section title winners here. Because what's going to happen is all of these really good teams are going to get pulled up into higher divisions, have to play, maybe harder competition. And then maybe the teams that, some of the mediocre teams, maybe say in Division 3 or Division 2, will drop down divisions and maybe have an easier road to a section title game. So it is, again, it's called competitive equity because essentially what it does is it makes the playing field a little more even for teams that might not have had a chance to win section titles. So we are going to see more teams with opportunities and with better chances to win section titles. But on, the flip side of that too is, let's say you have a small school team that's, historically good. Let's take a St. Vincent, this past year, Division 7, one of the best, best team, they've ever had, state champion, all this different stuff. Well, for the section playoffs, they would have been pulled up into Division 5, and they would have been playing, potentially could have been playing, teams from Division 3, like a Maria Carrillo, like a Santa Rosa, like a Montgomery or something like that too. So again, St. Vincent is good enough to play with and probably beat a lot of those teams, but we're also probably going to see some small school teams like a Clear Lake as well. Clear Lake has been historically good the last couple of years. Yep. They could get pulled up all the way into like Division 4, Division 5, and playing up against teams like American Canyon or like Montgomery or like Santa Rosa. So
I think of St. Bernard's too.
St. Bernard's as well. So it is definitely going to be a bit of a change. I'd say probably a big change, but at the end of the day, it's like this is going to be something that will make the section playoffs more competitive. It will give more teams a chance to win section titles, and it will also make, I guess, the open division too. I mean, that open division is going to be, a collection of the best teams, in the section essentially. So, once we get off to the state playoffs and everything like that, then it is the best of the best who are going to be going off and playing up there. So, Anyway, do you guys have any questions at this point? Because it is kind of a winding road here that we're weaving through. But yeah, Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, the only question I really had, well, I have a few questions, but the most important one I have right now is what are people's reactions to this? Because I think this is a solution kind of. I like it as a solution. I like it as a type of method to figure this whole thing out. But like, I could totally see a lot of people kind of
mixed emotions, my friend.
Mixed emotions on this. So what have you heard on that?
Well, and it's going to be different for every sport too, because, and like, I've talked to a few football coaches who, and I think all the football coaches I've talked to are just kind of neutral on it. They're like not really in favor, not really opposed, just kind of curious to see how it plays out. But there are schools like, there are going to be schools, I think like, the really talented smaller schools are probably going to bear the brunt of the negative impact of this, just because they are going to get, routinely, again, it's like, hey, if you have if you're St. Helena and you have an awesome, group of kids and a really great senior class or something like that, and you go, 10-2 or whatever, or 8-2 or whatever, in the regular season, and then you get pulled up into Division 5 and you're playing against, some, I guess, mediocre Division 3 schools that drop down, you're going to have a harder path to get to the playoffs, to get to a section final. Whereas if you were still in Division 7, you'd probably just coast to a section title there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But again, like I kind of mentioned at the top too, there is some data that we can kind of look at already. Because again, this has been the competitive equity has been used widespread, in most of the sections, across the state, yes. And also again at the state playoff level too. But the Mercury News does a great job of this. Shout out to them. Darren Saavedra is a rock star. He's really fluent in all of these things. But he always does this every year, where he kind of compiles some data from the CCS and the NCS playoffs. And so again, so the CCS uses a straight competitive equity model. They don't take into account enrollments. It is just straight. If you're top 8 in the section ranked, you're in Division 1/Open Division. If you're 9 through 16, doesn't matter your school size, doesn't matter any of that stuff. You're placed in Division 2 and so on and so forth. So they go straight competitive equity through and through. NCS again uses their old model has been however good you are in the last couple years, then you can move up or down divisions, sort of thing. So. That's how. So the NCS kind of uses past success, where the CCS kind of uses current in-season success to depend on your, where you get placed for playoffs. So this is just all data that that the Mercury News has compiled. But last year, so the average margin of victory in the playoffs for the CCS was 16.3 points a game. In the NCS, it was 25.5. Single-digit results. 14 out of the 35 games in the CCS playoffs were decided by single digits. In the NCS, it was 10 and 48 games. So that's a difference of 40% and 20.8%. 40 plus points. Games decided by 40 plus points. CCS, there was only one game decided by 40 plus points in 35 games. NCS, there was 9 and 48. So 2.9% to 18.8%. 30 plus games, 6 in the CCS in 35 games, 18 and 48 in the NCS. And then 20-point games, 15 and 35 in the CCS, 31 and 48 in the NCS. So that's 65% of games were decided by 20 plus or more points last year in the playoffs. So just all of that said, it's like, the CCS games are obviously the CCS playoffs are just straight up more competitive than the NCS games.
Yeah, and real quick, Gus, can I just take it back to your point on, teams getting pulled up based on their past success? I just want to give Jordan another example. So a couple years ago, Camp Alindo, they were in Division 2, and they went to the section final in Division 2. They ended up this year they ended up getting pulled up to Division 1 because of their past success, but they weren't too happy about it because they lost a lot of the dudes that got them. Exactly. Got him there. So it's
right at that time.
So that's what Gus's point is, trying to rid all this stuff. And I mean, keep in mind the state playoffs, the way they do it, which is similar to what the CCS does. I mean, they weren't far off based on St. Vincent playing Palo Alto, right. Pairing them together, it was a 2-point game. So yeah. So this could work well in the long run for sure.
Yeah, and that is a good point too about St. Vincent and Palo Alto, because I know everyone was like up in arms of like, why the hell is a 2,000 person school playing a 200 person school? And but it's like, well, the 200 person school still won, so like it was and it was a great game too. So it's like, that is that's a sign that again, the CCS does create, or the competitive equity model does create some pretty good and even matchups. So but no, back to your point as well though, Jordan, like it is a coaches, again, the football coaches who I've talked to, it is kind of a wait and see type of thing. There are obviously, some larger school coaches who are like, yeah, sure, I'm down for this, because again, it might make their path, to a section title maybe a bit easier. It's like, hey, like I'm looking at like, for example, I'm trying to like, I'm looking at, Rancho Cotati for next year, where they're going to be, and this is also very unique to our area too, because we have this whole new football realignment league that's going to be happening, and it's going to create a whole lot of like, the top league is going to be crazy good and so on and so forth. But like I look at Rancho Cotati, we're like, I don't really know what, like, if they're going to be super great next year. And especially in league, it's like, when you're playing San Marin Catholic, Vintage, Cardinal Newman, Windsor, like, every week, they're, they might be one of those bottom tier teams, but because they're in Division 3 and because, they're, they are still a quality team and should still, make the minimum requirements to get into the playoffs, based on, their record from league, they could drop all the way down from Division 3, like Division 4, Division 5, and have a better chance at, making a deep run in the playoffs. So that is kind of the two sides of it, right? Is like, you have the bigger schools who might underachieve for a year but are still good, and they're going to be matched up against smaller schools that are in the midst of good years and stuff. So again, it's kind of evening the playing field a lot for everyone essentially.
Yeah, I like it. And I mean, Gus and I have been talking about this for the past 2 years. We wanted to see the like St. Vincent's play the whatevers and all this other stuff. So so we'll be able to see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, and also just because St. Vincent is still so small, like, I mean, again, the highest division that they can make it to is Division 5, and so I guess you might have a really good St. Vincent team moving up, and maybe a not as up to their standards, Rancho Cotati team dropping down to D5, and you could see that matchup for sure. I will also say a few notes too, is that so the sports that this impacts, so it's football, basketball, boys and girls soccer, boys and girls water polo, baseball, softball, volleyball, and lacrosse. So it's not going to impact sports like wrestling, track and field, cross country, or swimming. Those are going to have the same postseason qualifiers and meets and such like that. So it's only for the team sports. And then also another like weird little wrinkle in this too is that I believe it's for girls volleyball and for basketball, and I think for girls volleyball, if you're in Division 6, those playoffs will only be with Division 6 teams. So it's only going to be the smallest of the small schools. So those schools can't move up or can't move down, in their division. So anyway, it's going to be a really interesting change. Sorry, Kienan, you were going to say something.
No. I just had a quick question, because I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, or I've read too much into it. Are there requirements for getting into playoffs based on the small? Are they similar? Or are they the same? Or have they changed at all?
So from what I've read, the NCS is retaining its minimum playoff requirements. You still have a 500 record or better in league, or a 500 record or better, overall, or a 500 record or better against teams in your base division. So they're keeping those same. They're keeping those same properties in place for playoff teams. But yeah, that is a good question. But yeah, I mean, so again, the few coaches I talked to, bigger school, coaches were like, yeah, sure, I'm curious to see how it kind of works out. And then even Trent, I talked to Trent over the weekend, and he's like, I'm not opposed, not for it. Like, it's, I'm just kind of curious to see how it plays out. And honestly, again, St. Vincent is the kind of team that it in theory, it would negatively impact. So, again, no, it's true though. I mean, like, they could be, moving up and playing against teams like, way bigger schools and stuff. But again, if the playing field is evened out, if you're playing a mediocre Division 3 team and you're a really good Division 7 team, like, if the game's still competitive, the game's still competitive. So,
totally.
Last couple of things here though, I will say though, it is, like a kind of an example I have from a different sport is like boys basketball. And so again, like in the NCS, there's been kind of an interesting situation that's happened, in this current kind of playoff format, is that based on your past success, you keep moving up or keep moving down in divisions. Well, it's much harder to move down in divisions in basketball because, you have to miss the playoffs for 3 or 4 years. And that's hard to do when you have 16 team playoffs, in the NCS. So it's very hard for teams to move down. So what's kind of happened is all of these really good teams have just kind of kept rising and kept rising and kept rising. And right now we kind of have a bit of a logjam of 6 or 7 really quality teams that are just stuck in Division 2 and they can't move down, but they're also not going to advance past the semifinals or the quarterfinals of the section playoffs. So what this could do is by kind of splitting them back up into different, base divisions and then, reseeding them for playoffs, it could break up a bit of that, again, a bit of that logjam in Division 2 and give some of those teams like a Petaluma or like a Montgomery or a Newman or something a chance to actually go pretty far in a section playoff matchup.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It seems like this new competitive equity dynamic kind of makes a lot of things more fluid. It's a little bit easier to move up and move down. And that's just gonna, dude, the matchups that's gonna bring are just gonna be insane because it's just gonna be. It's going to have teams that are playing with momentum that were typically in a lower seed, and now they're going to be playing against teams that were in a higher division that are kind of maybe taking a few steps back.
Yeah,
those are the best sports matchups. It's like the underdog who everyone's sleeping on rising, and the top dog who maybe is kind of falling off, meeting right there at that. Those are the matchups that I think across all kinds of different sports will make really, really good competition. So I really like it. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, and I think I'm I think my take on it is I am kind of with the coaches where I think it is going to be a bit of a wait and see thing too, because I also look at it you're also going to have some really talented big school teams taking boys basketball for example again Cardinal Newman or Montgomery, both of these schools are going to be probably section contenders in Division 2 this year in the NCS. Well, if this model was in place this year, there's a very good chance that those two teams will be pulled up into Division 1 / the open division. And then you're playing Salesian and Branson and San Ramon Valley and Granada. And then, you go from having a very good chance to win a section title or to make a section title game to maybe a first round exit because you're playing against the best of the best. So again,
that's the other side of the coin. It's tough, man.
Yeah.
That's
tough. This is the thing is that I know the people who are for it are yes, it creates more even playing field, and the people who are against it are well, it just kind of rewards teams for being mediocre, which there is some.
I get that.
There's some point.
There's some truth to that for sure. Yeah.
So anyway, it's not a perfect system. I do think it will be an improvement. Just kind of looking at some of the data that the Mercury News has compiled about all the blowouts and stuff, in the playoffs. I do think the playing field will be even. There will for sure still teams that are screwed by this. That's just again, but there's no perfect model. But again, I do think that based on kind of the CCS data, it's probably a change for the better. And then kind of looking at, and I do think too, in the NCS, people have been a little tired of this model, I think, for the last couple of years of how they do stuff. So I think it was time for a change. And I do think that this is a step in the right direction. So we'll see what happens. But next year, the next couple of years of seeing how this works out, will be very interesting compared to, again, how it's been in the last decade. So.
Totally.
Anyway, I don't know how. I hope that was semi-coherent. I know it's very kind of nitty-gritty in the details and stuff, but I hope that made sense to most of our listeners.
You did a great job, Gus. Broke it down great.
Good job, Gus.
And I will have
Gus.
We'll have a story too coming out about this too, with hopefully maybe it's a bit more coherent about how it all works.
Maybe Gus can put it in better English.
I'm better at writing them in my copy. So anyway.
That data you had that you broke down from the Mercury News is great too. That's really
Darren did a great job. Darren always does a great job.
Yeah, Darren's story on this too was definitely kind of helped me break it down too, because I've been this has been working its way through the NCS for a while, and I was most of my calls for the first couple for the last couple the first couple months of this process was so what the hell is this? And now I feel like I have a pretty good idea about it. So anyway. That's the new playoff model. It's going to be really interesting coming up in the next couple of years how this all works out. Some winners, some losers, no perfect system, but I'm excited to kind of see, again, just some changes and some new stuff going on. So with that being said, moving on, let's talk some hoops and soccer, boys. It's been a pretty interesting last couple of weeks. I think the last time we talked to you, it was 2 weeks ago. So this was before the Newman Montgomery matchup. This was before any of the Justin Siena, Petaluma, American Canyon games and such. So a lot's been going down in the last couple of weeks. But starting with the Oak, I think we had talked about it in last week's pod, but I think we all gave Newman a pretty good chance to beat Montgomery, and that's how it broke down. So last week of the regular season, Newman and Montgomery both have 2 games left. They're both playing Windsor and Piner this week, but they're both right now tied atop the NBL standings at 9-1. A very likely rematch in the NBL Oak tournament if they can both, again, take care of business this week. And Keenan, it's basically like Newman Windsor was last year. I mean, we're looking at 3 matchups.
Here we go again. We're
looking at 3 matchups, potentially 4 coming up. Again, if these 2 teams meet again in the NCS playoffs. So yeah, I mean, thoughts on the NBL Oak, I guess, kind of race at this point. I mean, I think we all thought it was going to be Monty Newman at the end, and yeah, here we are.
Real quick, just a disclaimer for everyone watching. So just to get ahead of this, if Newman and Monty do share the title, the regular season title at the end of the season, which is this week, then the automatic qualifier into the NCS playoffs will be determined by whoever goes further in the league tournament, which is what happened with Windsor and Newman last year. Basically, it came down to the final, so it was basically a winner take all type thing. Windsor ended up winning it, got the automatic bid into the NCS playoffs. So we might be, like I said, looking at a similar situation. So trying to get a little ahead of it before everyone starts bombarding us with questions like who's going, who's doing this. But anyway, to answer your question, Gus, I mean, man, this young Newman team, man, and with the return of Krupinski, or the comeback of Tatum Krupinski and everything like that, they have Travis Taylor has done some with those boys over there, man. They are good. They're freshmen. I'm a big AJ Cole fan. He is amazing. He's doing wonders at the point guard position there for Newman. But yeah, we were kind of wondering who was gonna kind of challenge Monty, and if anyone was going to, and we found out early on that it was going to be Newman, and I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that Newman was playing that well early on. And I'm not sure what your thoughts were on it, Gus, but yeah, I was a little surprised, but here we are, 3/4 of the way into the season, and Newman is still there.
Everything that we had heard about Newman, before the year was they're young, they graduated all their guys from last year. They have a couple guys who are coming back, but they're tons of underclassmen, like maybe a building year, like really no expectations. Especially kind of the first couple games where they grind out a 2-point win over Ukiah. They beat Marin Catholic in overtime, and then they go off and play in the St. Helena tournament and they win. But you're not playing really great competition in that. And then even for the Rose City, not the craziest schedule, I'd say, in that, but they had a statement win over Petaluma, and then since then they've been off. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't again, if you're watching this, you're probably pretty well versed in the sports scenes around here. So yeah, I mean, Monty Newman has been a rivalry for great rivalry for decades, and it's looking like it's playing out like that again this year with a very kind of surprise Newman team where these guys are going to be good for the next couple years, like really good. I mean, you mentioned AJ, sophomore and Legend Hale, Tatum's only a junior, Diego Gonzalez Flores is only a junior, Marty Kamara is only a junior. I mean, they have all these guys coming back next year, and it's going to be, watch out Sonoma County, because Newman is going to be a force to reckon with the last couple of years. So
Marty Kamara, by the way, I mean, we always talk about this dude, but this dude is 6'1" and playing like he's 6'8". I mean, this guy had 21 rebounds a couple of games ago. He's a beast, man. He's a beast, and he's really like one of their only 2 like returnees.
Big men. And also big men too.
And big men. Yeah, big men.
The guy's quads like friggin' tree trunks, though. I don't know if you've seen that, but he's not built like a 17-year-old.
Well, yes, I don't look at the I'm not focused on the quads, but okay.
It's hard to miss him as all.
Should we switch over to the Redwood, Gus?
For the Redwood, jumping over leagues here, but Ukiah wrapped up their second straight NBL title last week. Took down Rancho Cotati. Rancho had a tough loss to LC Allen earlier in the week, which kind of set up a clinching game last week between Ukiah and Rancho, and Ukiah took it. It was gritty, hard fought, lots of fouls, lots of free throws, but Ukiah came out on top. Second straight again, league title for them. They snapped a 33-year league title drought last year, and then their head coach Dwayne Nelson told me that this is the first time that Ukiah has gone back to back for boys basketball, league title since 1938. So that's, what is that, almost 90 years. So that's pretty crazy. So great couple of years for them. I know that they have some seniors who are graduating this year, so we'll kind of see what what the next few years look like. But Ukiah has been great and should be a tough out, I think, in the NCSD2 playoff. So not a whole lot more to add on that. But Jordan, we're going to toss it over to you here for some VVAL updates, because things have changed a lot.
Talk about in that one.
Things have changed a lot in the last
VVAL action.
Go for it.
Yes, man. Well, hey, first of all, I think everyone would have picked Justin to be the one, a top 3, seed in VVAL. But I mean, to be undefeated is, I think, still pretty impressive for this team. I mean, it's not like they have guys who have been in their roles they've been in their whole careers. You look at guys like Jaden Washington and all the other guys. These are guys who didn't play big minutes, their entire career. And now they're kind of in their senior years, and they're being thrusted into being the leaders now. And for them to be undefeated at this point, I think is still very impressive, even though they're kind of anointed for being this kind of a team. So shout out to them. But American Canyon's pulled away. I mean, they are clearly the second best team in the VVAL. And they're doing it, in a variety of ways, playing super physical. Jack Turner's lighting it up from 3. I feel like, they kind of always knew their identity, but now it's really, really starting to kind of show force here. The Napa and the Vintage of the world, they've kind of come back, crashing down back to earth a little bit after a really good, 2.5 week stretch from Napa, especially. Mm-hmm. I mean, that program is on the right track under Coach Carson, man. Mm-hmm. They kind of have the right pieces. They have the right identity. Seeing them play a couple weeks ago against Vintage, and they have another, as we're recording today on Tuesday, January 3rd, they got another rematch with Vintage here tonight over at Vintage. So that should be a great game. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think we're starting to see, as the regular season kind of comes to an end here, the teams are really starting to, stamp their places in the league. I have a question for you guys though. I was at American Canyon Napa last week, and great game. Jack Turner had a phenomenal showing. Napa kept it pretty close, but it was a pretty good game overall. I talked to Scott Hayburn, the American Canyon's head coach, post game. He went on the record with this, and I'm a paraphrase, because he was pretty vulgar, not vulgar like in his language, but vulgar with his tone about it. But he does not care at all about the VVAL League tournament, and he even said that his boys don't care, he doesn't care, and there's no goals or ambitions behind winning the VVAL tournament. And he also said he doesn't understand what the point of the tournament is. What is the point of the tournament if it's not really going to affect seeding? And what is the point of the tournament in terms of it adding more games and more terrain for a team that has to go through? So I heard that, and I was like, man, that's a great thing to talk about on the pod. I was curious on your guys' take on this. Just the idea of having league tournaments instead of just crowning a league, a regular season champion, and how much this kind of matters in the fold of things. I know I'm a tournament guy. I like tournaments. They're fun to cover. They're fun to go to. They're fun to consume. But just from a standpoint of a team perspective, do you think there should be readjusting or just some rethinking on how we kind of conduct end of the season tournaments in general?
I mean, this has definitely been something that I don't think like Scott is alone in his thinking of this. I'll pull back the curtain here a little bit though. The whole point of these postseason tournaments, and the NBL does it the exact same way, is just to make money. Like that's just like it really is, because all of the money from the NBL tournament goes, or I don't know how much of it, but most of it I'm pretty sure goes back to the league, and it's a good way to kind of make revenue. I mean, again, these leagues do need money to actually to be able to do things. But that is kind of the whole point of it is hey, you create a small postseason tournament or an end of league tournament, and you get a lot of people going out, and you have the best teams playing, and you get some good gate fare from that. But no, Scott's right though. There's nothing that this also, I guess the leagues could say that this does also. It's like, hey, you play a harder team, so it helps your playoff seeding in the long run, and maybe that's true for sure, but yeah, I mean, he's right though. It's like there's nothing really, I guess, for a team to kind of play for, because it doesn't really impact really anything. I mean, I like a lot how the MCAL does it, because the MCAL does it where the regular season only impacts your seeding going into the tournament, and then the tournament actually decides who your league champion is going to be. So you could have the fourth place team in the regular season go on a crazy run and upset the number one seed in the championship, and then they're the league tournament, and then they're the league winner. So, but I guess too there are two sides to every kind of scenario here, and I guess you could have people being like, well, then what's the point of the regular season, and this and that, and like so you lose 5 games in the in league, and then you become the league champion. Like, how is that fair and stuff? And yeah, I mean, I think there is some merit to both sides of it, but I don't know. I mean, this is how the NBL has done this for a while. I mean, I can just kind of track back to my experience of doing this. Like, when I was playing at basketball at Healdsburg, I think we made the postseason tournament I think my junior year. And we, it was fun. The first round game, it was at home. We had a great game against Pioneer. We ended up winning, but then we played and the cool thing is that we played Annalee in the league championship game, and that game was at SRJC, and so it was packed too. I mean, this is what was fun about it too, is that it used to be at some fun neutral sites. So now it's at Rancho Cotati, and they have all these people there and stuff, but I mean, that was part of the fun part of it. Was like, oh yeah. And also like, I was in high school, so I didn't really understand, what was kind of going on, but it was a fun experience. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think Scott's alone in his thinking, but I mean, again, this is just how the NBL has done it, but I don't know. I think it would be kind of fun to change it up and do something different maybe in the next couple of years. Like,
yeah, and I think where Scott's just looking out for his guys. I think at the end of the day, I think he's just making sure that they're not being worn out. They're one of the more physical teams in the league. I mean, they take a beating every game. They're one of the league leaders in rebounding. They're physical team. So I understand the concern with playing too many games in that kind of stretch. But to your point, yeah, I think from an experience standpoint, for those kids to be able to be at a neutral site place, kind of playing against all these different teams in their league, and having another opportunity to kind of show why they are one of the best teams. I think the kids will take that challenge on and embrace it and have a good time with it. Totally. Even if it doesn't have some serious, playoff ramifications attached to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, this might be sense.
No, totally. No, that was a good thing to bring up, honestly. Yeah. But like I said, but yeah, bringing it back to our side of the V-Val, it was pretty interesting, that because Petaluma is pretty much out of the title race at this point by losing to Casa. That was a crazy game to follow and watch. I'm pretty sure that was when Gus was at the Rancho Ukiah game. But yeah, Petaluma, so much promise from them early on, and then they had the unfortunate injury to Andy Bai. I saw though, Gus, he was able to get back on the court for a little bit, right?
Yeah, that was kind of funny. I don't know whose idea it was, but yeah, I mean, Andy's having surgery this week on his torn ACL, but they were able to get him in for, it looked like the last 30 seconds to the last minute of the game against Napa. They were kind of force feeding him, and he was kind of hobbled on one leg, but it was just kind of one of these moments of just have him try to make something, just he's, surgery this week. He's not going to be able to, to do this again, the rest of the way. So, just sucks for Andy. I mean, I know him pretty well. It's just a weird small world here, but I live in Petaluma and we go to the same gym, and we've played pickup together, and he's a great kid. Really good student too. He's like a 4.6 something student. So I know that he had also had like a tryout, I think, with like Caltech down in SoCal, which is a super hard school to get into academically. And so, I mean, he's gonna, he'll have a great, kind of post high school, I mean, he'll be fine in life, but it just totally sucks for, this kid is, one of the best players I'd say in the county to have a season cut short like this. But yeah, I mean, again, his injury has crazy impacted, not just Petaluma, but the whole V-Val race too. I mean, you mentioned the Casa loss, but yeah, I mean, and that for sure knocked him out. But like, I mean, I think we were all very hyped up about the Justin Siena Petaluma, kind of duel this year, in league, and he got hurt before their first game and they lost by 18, in that first matchup. So, yeah, I mean, it really kind of popped their balloon, I guess, for lack of a better phrase or something like that. But no, I mean, I think Petaluma, it's funny because they're one of these teams that could actually benefit, from the postseason tournament, where they kind of, if they're able to, if they're able to kind of string together a few wins here, it could really help them going into the playoffs. So, I guess that, that's kind of the two sides of that, of the postseason tournament coin, I guess, a bit right there, Jordan. So,
also Petaluma won the tournament last year.
There you go. Exactly.
Against Justin Siena.
Exactly.
Funny, they play American Canyon tonight at American Canyon. So it's just funny, like this team that would probably say something totally different about how they feel about the tournament playing against the team.
I know.
That's like, yeah, the tournament's not even our focus right now. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting thing there. But
that's that's also a good game to bring up too, because I believe Justin Siena, or I believe if American Canyon loses this week, then Justin Siena, I believe, clinches the league title. So if Petaluma can knock off AmCam tonight, I think that would wrap up the title for Justin. So,
which can totally happen. That's totally within the realm of possibility. So I wouldn't count it out.
For sure.
Count it out. But yeah, I think the V-Val has been pretty interesting. Again, I'm really impressed with Justin, because again, they're a team where, yes, they have a lot of talent, but I didn't see them with the guys that are stepping into the roles that they're stepping in. This is a team that has a lot of continuity in terms of the people on the roster, but they haven't been doing what they're doing in their roles for 3 or 4 years. Jaden Washington coming off the bench for varsity for a couple years. Asa Hightower, the brother, his brother, played last year, or for, with Justin for 4 years. He's a sophomore. He's still kind of learning. They have a young, not a young team, but guys who are young in their roles. So to see them be undefeated I think it's still an impressive accomplishment there. And yeah, if they can clinch the number 1 seed tonight with American Canyon potentially losing, that'd be a huge milestone for that group.
Well, and the way that they've kind of reloaded, because last year they were so senior heavy, and I mean, the last couple of years they've been they were so good, and just to see them kind of reload like they have this year, having graduated all of those guys, I mean, they're probably in line for the number 1 seed for NCS Division 4 playoffs too, which is, I don't think anyone, I mean, like, again, I think that they've created a program here where year in, year out, they're going to be contenders. But I don't know if anyone kind of saw them being this good, I'd say, especially after graduating last year's crop. So.
Absolutely
crazy though.
Absolutely.
All right, quickly moving on over to girls basketball, because we still got to get to some soccer and wrestling too at the end. Actually, quickly before we get into girls basketball, just a quick update in our rankings. Not a whole lot's changed the last couple of weeks. Montgomery Newman still at 1-2. Justin Siena has had some rise, I guess, the last couple of weeks. But that's kind of coupled with Petaluma struggling a bit. Justin Siena is now number 3 in our rankings. American Canyon's number 4. Ukiah is at number 5. They closed out the regular season on Saturday, I believe, with Healdsburg. Petaluma, which I believe 2 weeks ago was number 3, has dropped all the way now to number 6. Again, they've had some struggles of late. I think they've lost 3 of their last 6 games. They dropped both games to American Canyon and Justin Siena, and then they had that loss to Casa last week. So yeah, just some tough sledding for them. And then Piner had a last second loss to Maria Carrillo over the weekend as well. But they're going to stick at number 7, mainly because I'm not quite sure what to do with the bubble teams that we have left. I mean, Carrillo's on the bubble, St. Vincent's on the bubble, St. Helena's on the bubble. But I think our top 7 is pretty clear cut for now. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely kind of shaved off a couple of those bubble teams just with with some of the recent results, and really kind of getting a better picture for kind of the hierarchy around here. So anyway, those are our boys basketball rankings for this week. I'll on to girls basketball, boys. Starting with the Oak. I mean, Newman is just a juggernaut, man. I mean, I think we talked about them. Them in our last pod. You know, I think Tissa Kuraz has just got eligible. I think in our last pod that we talked about, and yeah, I mean they're world beaters now. I mean, so this last week, I mean they destroyed Montgomery and they destroyed Maria Carrillo, who's number 2 and 4 in our rankings. Killed them by, I believe, 40 or 50 in both of those games, so wasn't even really competitive. They're up to number 6 in the state and Cal High sports rankings, up to number 25 in the nation in SB Live sports rankings. And yeah, Newman, I'd say, is now all of a sudden a favorite to win the NCS Open Division title, and also probably go off to be a legit contender in the NorCal Open Division. Against Mitty, who's currently ranked number 1 in the nation. So, hey, this is what Newman's been building towards. I know that, head coach Monica Myrtle really, I know she looks up to Sue Phillips a lot, the Archbishop Mitty coach, one of her big kind of mentors, idols, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, Monica wants to be the best and she wants to beat the best. So yeah, I mean, Newman has been building towards having a team that can compete and beat Mitty. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, this is kind of, going to be the big storyline to follow, I think, in the playoffs, is how far can Newman girls go, and can they give, and if they do play Mitty, can they give them a battle? So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But I mean, Newman has just been absolutely cruising of late. So don't see them probably having many tough games the rest of the way, I guess, until the NCS, like later in the NCS Open Division playoffs. But someone said it best to me recently, is that their next loss is going to be their last loss, just because it's probably going to come so late in the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, again, Newman girls just freaking cruising right now. So, but I do think too, we should shout out Maria Carrillo too. I know that they got spanked by Newman last week, but probably the hardest schedule in the area outside of Newman. I mean, just in the last week, they've played the number 11, the number 6, and the number 17 teams in the state. Now, granted, they lost all 3 games, but Carrillo is just scheduled super tough, this year, and they're going to be much better for it come playoffs. And I think that they're going to be a legitimate team to win, the NCSD D3 playoffs, along with Montgomery and NCSD 2 as well. So, Keenan, I know that you were able to catch some. I believe it was the Newman Monty game last week. You saw. Tissa for the first time. Again, I know, most local teams around here are going to be overmatched, but I don't know, what were your kind of impressions just seeing Tissa play for the first time, and also, I mean, again, of Monty too, because we haven't seen Monty play yet this year.
Yeah. Well, so it's crazy because Newman's magic number to clinch, I guess, is now at 1, which is kind of weird that they have. It's almost weird to say they haven't clinched yet. But obviously 2 games remaining in league play. Carrillo's has 2 league losses, both to Newman. So yeah, Newman's magic number is at 1 technically, but yeah. Look, you know how I'm such a big fan of that Monty trio, man. I love those girls over there, man. They're awesome. Kaylin DeVries, Kai Eubanks, and Elle Picard. They're good, man. I was first time seeing them as well. And right off the bat, they were hanging toe to toe with Newman until it was 7-7, 7-7, and then Newman turned on the Jets. But yeah, seeing Tissa for the first time, it's pretty. There was so many we have such high praises of her, and there were so many expectations of going in, actually watching her for the first time. I mean, yeah, she's nuts. I think the most underrated ability that she has, which is probably her best ability, is her vision. Because she is no look boom, no look boom into the corner. And Monica Myrtle was talking to me after the game, and she goes, "Yeah, I literally have to tell my girls have your hands up or you're gonna get hit in the face." Yeah, but she does it all, man. I mean, there was no better example of that in the third quarter, where she just completely swatted a 3-point attempt and took it all the way herself on the fast break for a layup. And I mean, she is jumping all over the place.
I saw your video of that too, and it looked like she almost touched rim / God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's close. She's close, dude. And what is she, 6'1"? She's she's a beast, man. And the scariest part is how much she opens up the court for probably the best shooter in the county in Kate Schott. That is a scary, scary duo. And obviously, Kate Angelo obviously there as well. And Monica's playing a bunch of young players too, like a couple freshmen as well, which are getting great game time and all this other stuff. It was a pleasure to see her, and I'm sure we'll be following her more as the Cardinals go deeper into the postseason and things like that. But like you said, going back to Monty real quick, like you said, they're going to be a very, very tough out in NCSD too, for sure, because they certainly have that talent. And Emily Mathis, she has been a great compliment to that trio, as well. So Montgomery's going to be a tough out, but I would say as far as Oak. Obviously, Newman's the height, but this may be one of the deeper Oaks we've seen as far as the top three. So it'll be exciting come postseason time for sure.
We very well could have three section finalists, I'd say, out of those top three teams in that league, which is kind of crazy to say. So
knock on wood, Gus. Don't do that.
Definitely, I know. Yeah, no press Democrat Chris here. Hopefully,
it's just I can't. It's just so remarkable that they had such a great roster and a great team before, and then just to add a talent like Tissa like that in the middle of the season, it's just so unprecedented, but it's so awesome at the same time. Just for their program. They're out of bounds, man. They're crazy.
And it's crazy because again, she's only a junior, so she'll be eligible to play next year as well. And this is the thing too. It's that midi. Again, this midi team is generationally good. Again, there's debate about whether they're the greatest girls team ever come out of California, the Bay Area. So there's some legit conversations about that happening. And again, this is a midi team that always reloads every year, kind of like Newman does. But again, Morgan Shelley's graduating. They have a couple other D1 players who will be graduating next year. So, and then again with Newman, Tissa's coming back, Kate Schott's coming back, a lot of their rosters coming back too. So Newman again, maybe the window isn't as open this year, but next year there could be a very good chance that Newman is even better, and Midi might have taken a bit of a step back. So we'll see what happens.
Who knows? You never know. But
who knows? You never know. Changing gears here over to the NBL Redwood. Healdsburg on its way. My Greyhounds, let's go Greyhounds, are on their way to capturing their second NBL Redwood title. If they beat Santa Rosa tonight, they will clinch it. I believe they won 12 in a row at this point. They're just kind of making quick work of league play this year. And again, we talked about Monty, Newman, Carrillo being section contenders and open 2 and 3 divisions. Well, Healdsburg is probably right up there with them in Division 4. Along with Justin Siena also, and we'll get to them here in a second, but. Yeah, for Division 4, Healdsburg, I believe they had a kind of a disappointing run last year in the playoffs, but they have some very, very talented players this year who I think that they could go a bit deeper. So, and who knows, they probably have a very good chance of meeting Justin in the D4 playoffs. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But I don't have a whole lot more to add about the Redwood. So I don't know, Keenan, if you didn't have any thoughts, I think we'll just throw it over to Jordan for the VVAL wrap up.
Yeah. I just had one thought because we're talking about all these individual players. We're talking about Lena Groskas, Carrillo, the Monty Trio, Tissa, but Haley Webb at Healdsburg has been one of the most consistent players in the county this year by a mile. I know she was injured last year towards the end with in the playoffs and stuff like that, but seeing her get back and she's been one of the better players in the county so far. So just wanted to give her some love and give her some shout out for sure for your Greyhounds.
She might be close to averaging a double in points and assists, which is very hard to do in Healdsburg or in high school. So and she also just passed 1,000 career points too at earlier this year as well. So yeah, definitely an awesome player. So go Greyhounds. I don't want to say that, but all right, Justin Siena VVAL time. Justin Siena again on its way here. Although I will say, I don't want to say they're on their way because big game coming up tonight against Sonoma Valley, which is in second place. So I believe Justin would clinch league with the win tonight.
They would.
But yeah, Jordan, what's been happening with Justin in the VVAL?
Very kind of similar to the boys situation. what I think since the last time we talked, what's the most impressive about them is, when two of the, at the time, the bigger leaders in the VVAL kind of came into their house and was, presented a big test for them. They not only won, but they won in convincing fashion. Petaluma dominated them. American Canyon dominated them. I mean, like, it's not just that they're beating, the higher caliber teams in the league. It's that they're doing it in dominant fashion from beginning to end. And I thought that was really, the most impressive kind of stuff I saw since we last kind of spoke about VVAL. Again, they're going to have a couple more tests here. Their last game of the season, obviously, you already spoke on it tonight. They can clinch the VVAL tonight with a win against Sonoma Valley. But they also have, another game against American Canyon at American Canyon to kind of close out the season on the 3rd. That is going to be a huge game. I fully expect American Canyon to kind of come out and try to show that, that last showing at Justin wasn't who they really are, and they really want to try to impress. But no, I mean that, Dylan Topowski, Jordan Washington, they're a really good team. They have a lot of talent. They're cruising right now. They're in that stretch of the season where I think they're playing with the swagger that they've been trying to, find throughout the entire year. Shout out to my guy, Andrew Betancourt, head coach slash AD over there at Justice Siena. He's doing a phenomenal job this year. And they're the leaders in the clubhouse in that department in the VVAL. But yeah, I think just to that point about what I said earlier, I think it's really kind of fascinating to see both of these programs, the boys and the girls, kind of dominating in this kind of way. I can't think of another situation I've seen. Have you guys seen it in any of your leagues you've covered in the past or anything like that, where you've seen the boys and the girls kind of like dominate in this kind of fashion?
Newman.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, American Canyon, I think, is still a very serious threat. Obviously, and they have a really talented roster as well. They play really fast, play really up and down. It's going to be interesting to see how everything kind of shakes out. But yeah, I think Justin is clearly the dominant team that everyone has their eyes on, and they're trying to bring their best to them. So it's a pretty good race over there in the VVAL.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Sonoma Valley too. I think the big thing that's kind of I guess kind of allowed Justin to be in this position right now is MCAM beats Sonoma Valley last weekend, I believe it was.
Yes, it did.
Which is a big kind of result for the league race, because I think for most of the league, I think Sonoma Valley has given Justin I think their biggest challenge I think this year, and I think Justin won by 4 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I know that's Sonoma was kind of hot on their heels for most of the race, and then American Canyon just kind of comes in and says, "Whoops, gonna drop you one more game back."
Chaos.
What? Chaos. Absolutely. Absolutely chaos. So anyway, so Justin could definitely wrap it up tonight. I believe with the win over Sonoma Valley, I believe. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, Justin, we mentioned Healdsburg and Carew and Monty, but Justin for sure is right there in Division 4 as a prime contender. They have there's some very good small school private team or private schools in that D4 bracket. So it will be a tough kind of I don't know, just very hard playoffs for any of those teams. But I think Justin has proved that they have the mettle to make a pretty deep run. So.
Yeah, I think another thing about it just seems like every time I go and watch them, I'm looking to see, because they just have a target on their back. So I'm thinking like the teams that they're going to be playing, whether at home or on the road, they're going to come and try to punch them in the mouth. And that's what I really thought that was going to happen with that American Canyon game a couple weeks back. And just to see Justin just come out guns blazing, I mean, shooting, all like the numbers were ridiculous. I mean, they offensively just dominated them, rebounding. Points in the paint. It was a fascinating thing to see. So playing with that kind of confidence when you're a top seed like that, I mean, that's dangerous, man. Playing with a lot of momentum.
Absolutely. Well, last thing before we kind of switch gears over here to soccer, we'll also give a quick shout out to the Cloverdale girls basketball team, who I know we haven't done much coverage of this year, but they're now tied for first place in the NCL 1. They had a huge win over Middletown over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, Middletown was the only team that had beaten them in league play, to this point. And then, Cloverdale brings them, welcomes them to Cloverdale and sends them home with, I believe, a 30-point loss. So Cloverdale and Middletown kind of tied up there, atop those rankings. And yeah, I mean, they have some awesome players too, who deserve some shout outs, but Tylee Thatcher also, again, great senior guard. I believe she also hit 1,000 points at some point this year. Riley Reasoner is also up there. Cammie Donahue. Again, they for a small school, I know that we don't cover small schools as much as, we have in the past, but I mean, Cloverdale has definitely, had a season, had a great season. I know that, there's really good basketball history and tradition, in Cloverdale. So this team is definitely kind of, carrying on that legacy. So just shout out to them before we kind of move on here to soccer. But I guess with that, yeah, soccer time, boys. Let's start here. And again, I know that, we've already been going here for an hour, so we'll try to kind of, I guess, speed on through, I guess, these next couple sections here. But boys soccer, great race. I think we talked about, Keenan, you mentioned chaos, a minute ago, but I'd say, again, there are for sure some a clear-cut favorite in Newman, but they had a 1-1 tie last week to Piner. Great effort from Piner to force that draw. But two massive games coming up this week. They're playing Maria Carrillo, who's in second place right now, on Wednesday, and then they're playing third place Montgomery on Friday. So yeah, I mean, we've both been out to a couple of games. I don't know, what are we thinking about the rest of this NBL Oak boys soccer race? I think it's gonna be really exciting.
I think this is. I think you hit the nail right on the head here. This is probably one of the more thrilling, apart from maybe Monty Newman and boys basketball. I would say this might be one of the more thrilling title races that we have across all sports. To be honest with you, that's just my opinion. Obviously, you guys can take with it what you will. But yeah, I mean, hey, Newman's been, I mean, the Newman Monty game that I was at beforehand, where it was just raining crazily, and
yeah.
Nate Lubega came up big in the end. That was fantastic. There's no easy game in boys soccer for the NBL Oak this year, and I think this has proved it. Gus, you were at the Windsor Newman first meeting, and Windsor gave them a battle. So nothing is easy for sure. Obviously Pioneer is still the defending champion, so they could still cause some chaos. Who the heck knows? But yeah, this NBL Oak this year is pretty deep, which I think is great for boys soccer around the area for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, I mean, again, I mentioned, some of those matchups coming up this week. But yeah, I mean, Newman so far has, won the first two matchups against this team. I think they both, beat Carrillo 2-0 and they beat Monty 2-0 in the first meeting. So again, Newman is, all the coaches had said, Newman is kind of the, the clear-cut favorite this year. And so far that's been holding true. But again, Carrillo is still right there. Montgomery is, very close too. So race is definitely not over, especially, with these big games coming up this week. So, all right, over to the NBL Redwood real quick. 2-team race. We kind of knew that coming in, but there's kind of I mean, I guess not a surprise because, again, we knew that they would be a contender, but Annalee has taken over the top spot. They got a head-to-head win over Ukiah last week, game I was at. And, Annalee won 2-0. Ukiah is the only team, I think that's the only local team that's beaten Newman this year. So that was definitely
and it was like 4-0 too.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it wasn't 4. Man, I think it
was 4.
That's kind of crazy, but I mean, again,
let me double check that.
Ukiah
Great podcasting.
Ukiah has been again kind of the clear-cut favorite, but yeah, I mean, Annalee for sure took it to them. There were some funny comments from Shane Huff, who's Ukiah's head coach, after the game, and I guess this is kind of a thing: is there's no like set field dimensions for soccer in high school. So there's some fields that are like 15 yards wider and 20 yards longer. There's some pretty big variations in boys soccer, and I guess Annalee has one of the smallest fields around, and Ukiah has one of the biggest fields. So anytime you play a game, I guess on Annalee soccer field, there's a big home field advantage just because it's so compact and so kind of just physical and gritty and kind of ugly, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I mean, Annalee took full advantage of that. Ukiah kind of likes to spread the ball out, play tempo, play possession, and they aren't really able to do that with the pretty cramped field. So, yeah, Shane definitely mentioned that in his post game comments. But yeah, I mean, Annalee won. They now have the first, the top spot in league. But again, these two teams will play each other to wrap up the regular season at Ukiah as well. So that's a game that will again decide the league title over there. So
I'm sorry, it was 2-0. My bad.
2-0. There you go. I was gonna say 4-0. I like 4-0's like a freaking like 60-point route if we're comparing it to like basketball or something. But I know I was like, anyway. Anyway, great race in the NBL Redwood too, along with the NBL Oak. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, all of these boys soccer races are great.
Oh, this is fantastic.
VVAL 2 is awesome as well. Jordan, have I mean, just throwing it over to you. I mean, the boys soccer race is awesome right now in the VVAL.
Like 2.5 weeks ago, it was looking like Vintage is like, boom, they're at the top, they're leading it, we're rolling. I remember I went to their American Canyon game, they snuck out of there with a win. It's like, yeah, we're playing great. And then they had Casa. They met Casa that same week.
Yep.
And then Casa they beat them, and then they've just been on a roll, man. They've been on a roll. They're leading in the clubhouse in the VVAL. But it's still a really close match. I mean, it's still a really close race. I think Vintage. One thing that's helped Casa is definitely, I think their schedules kind of opened up and lightened up a little bit. Outside of Napa, I mean, they're playing the Justin Siennas of the world, American Canyons of the world. It's kind of lightened up a little bit. But it's still really competitive and close race. But they're just figuring out ways to win. They're figuring out ways to win. Look, Petaluma, they escaped 3-2. Or what was that, last week, I think.
Yeah.
So they're figuring out ways to win, and I think it's making the top end of the league very, very close, very, very competitive. So it's just great. It's just great for everyone when you have a league that's this stacked and this competitive. So it's great.
100%. Yeah. Well, and I think you did bring up a good point, is that after that Vintage win, Casa hasn't had the hardest schedule. I mean, again, Napa, Justin, American Canyon, Petaluma are not, they're kind of all like, the bottom tier, teams in the standings. This week though, and next week, I mean, again, to finish out the regular season, I believe both teams have 3 games left. I mean, Casa plays at Sonoma Valley. I believe that's on Friday, and then they play Vintage for the second and final time the following week. So again, I believe they only have like a 1-game lead or 1.5 game lead, right now.
Casa in league is 8-0-1. Vintage is 6-1-1. Casa's only tie in league came to Petaluma in their first meeting, and Vintage's only loss is to Casa, obviously.
There you go.
So, and then I can't remember who Vintage tied to in league.
Vintage had the crazy tie to Sonoma Valley over the weekend.
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a game that Sonoma Valley felt that they had won. I think they took a 2-1 lead, I believe, with like 4 minutes left, and then Vintage got a crazy stoppage time goal to force the draw. And essentially, I mean, again, like, keep within striking distance, of Casa. But it also, again, it benefited Casa because they got a for sure a boost in the standings. And I'm not sure. I know that the NBL does a point system where it's like 3 wins for or 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. I don't know if the VVAL does it like that. But I think it might just be a game by game, or like it's like a traditional standing type of format. But either way, again, this race is going to come down to these last 3 games, and they're all going to be 3 very, very, or 3 or 4 or 2 or 3, whatever, very competitive games. So Sonoma Valley Casa on when is that? Is that Friday? Friday, and then and then against Vintage at home on Wednesday. And so again, those 2 games will essentially decide the race. So we will see. Jumping over to the girls' side real quick, kind of our last couple of teams that we'll touch on here, but kind of a similar thing going on, with Newman at the top, but definitely a few teams who are still in the mix. I believe Maria Carrillo is still in there. Montgomery, I believe, might be a game or 2 back. And again, we still have, I think, 3 or 4 games left of league play. So these races are far from over. But I mean, again, at this point, it is kind of, Newman was the favorite coming in, and they are still, looking like the favorite to win it. But I was curious. I know that you've covered some Newman games. Were you able to ask their John Gilson, their head coach, about why they've played so few games this year? Because they only have like 8 or 9 games I think played at this point of the year.
Yeah, only 2 preseason games. He said they've asked, but I guess no one really wanted to come up there or anything like that, considering how strong Newman has been, especially last year, making it to the NorCal title game. I don't know. It was just, he said it was really tough scheduling wise this year, which is pretty odd, he said. So, it must have just been an anomaly of a year. I guess no one really wanted to play Newman. But I don't think it really fazed them too much, because they've just come on in league play and done pretty well. The one surprise in the NBL Ocas is Carrillo having 4 draws in league play. One of those was to Newman, obviously at Newman. They'll have their rematch today. Actually, no, not today. Coming up either this week or next. But Maria Carrillo's also tied twice to Montgomery, so a little bit of surprise there, because we were pretty high on Carrillo. But yeah, it's Montgomery, I believe, is a game back, I want to say. But like you said, Newman's at the top, so I mean, it's pretty much Newman decides their own fate at this point.
This has kind of been the Korea team of the last. I mean, last year too, they had 7 draws at the end of the year, which is kind of crazy, and they have 7 draws already at this point this year. And I mean, still 7 draws in a season is already a ton. And so again, to have that many, at this point this year is pretty crazy. But I think the big thing with Korea is like their defense is outstanding, but they're just having some trouble scoring goals. And so that's, I think, where all these draws are coming from is it's a lot of 0-0, 1-1 like draws. Yep. So I mean, if they had kind of a premier leading goal scorer, I think they probably come out on top of some of these games. But I mean, again, very, very good team, and I think that they are also kind of in line for a deep run here in the playoffs. So we'll see. I mean, and again, like you said too, definitely still one more, I think, rotation to go around with all these rematches and stuff. So not over yet. Switching gears over here to the NBL Redwood real quick. I mean, Ukiah, kind of the same thing in boys soccer, but I mean, Ukiah is kind of the top dog, top cat, I guess, Wildcats, for lack of a better term, but 6-0 at this point. I mean, they Piner second place, 4-1-1, Rancho coming in third, 4-2-1. So I mean, again, Ukai's kind of rolling right now. They actually took a loss to Sonoma Academy, who again, is playing in the NCL. I believe the NCL won this year, and they're always a very, very good program over there. So, I mean, kind of got upended by the Coyotes over the weekend, but also shout out to SA. I mean,
they're I mean, we're sorry to cut you off, but we're talking about harder schedules this year. SA has had one of the toughest schedules in girls soccer this year by a mile.
Casa, Carrillo, Sonoma Valley, Monty, Branson too, who they came to a 2-2 tie with. They played Newman as well. So yeah, for sure, they're going to be very, very well equipped and battle tested for the NCS Division 4 playoffs. So so Ukiah is kind of running away with that, but still some games coming up here. I mean, they still play Piner, and they still have to play Rancho. I believe that's coming up this week as well. So I mean, I think a couple more wins and they could clinch it. Wrap it up. But I mean, Ukiah is playing great as of late, and still in the driver's seat over there. So VVAL, last kind of league here we'll touch on, but I know, another great race. Keenan, you were out at the Casa Branson game on Saturday. I mean, that's a huge Division 2 game. Casa came out on top, huge kind of, I believe it was Branson that beat them in the playoffs last year. So that was a huge kind of game for them to, kind of get back, get back at the Bulls, and then also kind of strengthen up their postseason resume too. But I do want to ask Jordan too. Is there anyone catching Casa this year? I mean, Casa just seems like they're kind of the team right now.
No one's catching them. No one's catching them. I don't. They clear everyone. I don't. You know what I mean? Like you look at a team like Justin, who I think is kind of slept on. They're 5-3. They dominated Napa. But when they play a dominant team like Casa, what happened? 5-1. You know what I mean? It sometimes some of these matchups just kind of tell you what the real truth is in the league. And you look at it like Casa, they're clearly the favorites. I don't see any other teams kind of within the league to kind of close out the stretch of the year doing anything. And I fully expect Casa to be a high ranked NCS team going into the playoffs. So it's gonna be something to bear witness on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, constant. Go ahead, Jordan. Or King.
I kind of disagree. I think it's a 2-horse race because Vintage gave Casa its only loss this season so far in league play. Casa's 8-1, Vintage is 6-0-2, and the rematch will be coming next week, next Tuesday at Casa. So that will decide the league. Now I think Casa has a game in hand. Gus, we're not too familiar with how the draws shape and everything and all this other stuff. But yeah, I know, talking to the girls on Saturday, after they beat Branson, which was a huge win at the death, they were like, "Oh yeah, we can't wait to play Vintage again. We can't wait to play him again." So that's going to be a huge game. And hey, Casa, I mean, their schedule doesn't even get any. I know they play Sonoma Valley tonight, but before Vintage, they play Ukiah, which we just talked about, is on a freaking roll. So, yeah, as of now, unless Casa, unless Casa beats, right now, I think Vintage is right on their heels. Is right on the heels. So I think it's another crazy race that we have going on the soccer pitch, which all of these seem crazy. So
yeah,
I agree. Don't sleep on Vintage. I agree. I think Casa's playing with that juice right now, man. They coming. They coming with that juice.
Yeah, that Branson game was crazy. That was amazing. And just see the emotion for them winning that game after they got knocked out in the playoffs last year by Branson. It definitely meant a lot to him. So, but they got to keep it rolling.
So I mean, kind of craziness here, but out of how many leagues do we have here that we just touched on? I mean, we have 6 for basketball. Like, there's essentially 12 league races going on, and I think we only have 2 decided here, with only 3 or 4 games left for most of these. For most of league play here. So, I mean, last year I felt that we were spoiled, with how many of these, league races came down, to the final weeks, and we're kind of getting that again this year. So it should be a very exciting finish. And I am glad that we're doing this pod, this week, because we're, again, every other week, if we're doing this, we're not recording next week, but we will record the week after that. And by then it's like, we'll have the postseason seedings out. We'll kind of see how everything had kind of shaken out, I guess, with the, with the playoffs and with the postseason tournaments and such. So, good job by us, with the timing for this pod. So I think we're hitting this at a good point in the season where we're like, all right, let's take a breath and kind of catch up. So still a long way to go, but some really cool stuff kind of coming up here down the stretch. So, all right. That is the end of our basketball soccer talk. Last couple things, but we're going to hand the floor over here to Keenan to give us some wrestling updates, because again, only fitting too that the NBL wrestling title is coming down the wire as well. So Keenan, take it away.
Yep. So we'll start with NBL. Just like I said, Windsor Ukiah, huge dual meet this week that will decide the NBL title. It will be up at Ukiah. Windsor put themselves in a great position by sweeping the tri-meet over Cardinal Newman and Marie Korea last week. I was at that game, or I was not that game. Jeez, it's a meet. I got to switch sports here. It was at that meet, and a lot of guys were sick on all the squads, but Windsor is just so deep. I don't think they're as deep as they were last year. I don't think Ukiah is either, so it should be a fantastic duel to decide the league. Windsor obviously the defending champions, but man, that's going to be so exciting to follow and stuff like that. One team I want to give a shout out to, Jordan, you'll like this one. Napa, man. Look, man. Napa, that team has come such a long way. So they finished as a team. I believe they were 7th at the Puma Classic as a team, which for them is huge. They had multiple wrestlers in the 3rd place match at the Puma Classic at Maria Carrillo, and they beat notorious Vival powerhouse Casa Grande in a dual meet as well to shake up the Vival race. So Napa has coming up, man, their wrestlers are certainly need to watch out for those wrestlers coming into the sectionals coming up. Some other highlights, individuals, obviously Logan Bruce is doing his thing. I believe he's still only has 2 losses on the year. Right now, Noelle Alexander, also from Korea, she's looking, like I said, she's been killing it at the midweights. I believe it's 135 is what she wrestles at. She's been killing it. Yeah, it's been a lot of wrestling, a lot of great individuals this year, which is great. Big Ed Burnsich of Petaluma, who made the state championships last year at 195. He is now all the way up to heavyweights. He only weighs like 240, and he is like the top dude in the NCS at 285, which is pretty crazy. So lots of great individuals going on, lots of great tournaments as well. Obviously, you had the Goddess of the Vine at Windsor, Redwood Empire up at Ukiah. Then you had the King of the Mat at Windsor, and the Puma Classic at Maria Carrillo. I do want to give a shout out though. Obviously, we've had a lot of shout outs this episode, but Eric McDonald, he's for what he's been able to do. At 122, I believe, is what he wrestles at this year. With one leg. Obviously, if you don't remember, he lost majority of his leg in a car crash a couple years or a year or two ago. Was able to get back on the football field last year and wrestle, and now he's still wrestling, and he's been wrestling phenomenally. One of the top ranked dudes in the NCS. So shout out Eric McDonald. Lots of wrestling still to go, obviously, as we get closer and closer to sectionals and then possibly states. But yeah, great wrestling this year in the area, which is good for the county. So yeah.
Yeah, and Kienan, shout out to you too, because you've kind of taken on the I guess you're kind of our wrestling beat writer now, essentially. Going on this beat and stuff. So.
Great job.
I know that the community is appreciative of that because wrestling for sure I think has been a weak spot of ours in the last couple of years as we kind of try to rebuild the desk. So shout out to you. Great job with all the wrestling coverage so far. So.
Well, I appreciate that, but obviously Gus, has been helping out, putting out the state rankings in our local wrestlers every week, and there's a good handful of them, and a lot of them on honorable mentions as well. So
yeah, I think we have you mentioned Ed, I think Logan Bruce too, and then I think also Joseph Ellis from Vintage. I think are all like top 15 in the state wrestlers in their weight categories, and then also we have Jonah Bertoli, who was the Cardinal Newman sophomore, who's also a stellar wide receiver. I think he's like top 25. I want to say in the NCS. I know him he's in the state.
Oh, in the state.
Him and Logan too, or I believe ranked 1 and 2. In the NCS in the same weight class. So maybe some fun rematches coming up with them, because I know that they wrestled at the Puma Classic, and Logan won by pin, I believe it was. So
Logan did, but that was a crazy match. I mean, obviously didn't. But one of my favorite wrestlers though has been Devin Bertoli at 285, the heavyweight. Oh my gosh, this guy is awesome. He's like a little cannonball. He'll just drive people off the mat like every chance he gets. He's in that offensive line prowess. Obviously, he anchored one of the best offensive lines in this year at Newman's offensive line. But he's fun to watch, man. He's pretty fun to watch as well. So shout out to those guys. Obviously, and they're both sophomores, which is crazy. Joan and Devin are. So lots of good wrestling, and we're excited to see what happens in the next couple of weeks when we come back to you guys. So
is Eric McDonald, also a sophomore at Newman. So
I know it's crazy.
Stud sophomore class. Anyway, we've been going here for an hour and a half. This has been a good pod. But some last thoughts here, boys. I have a couple more shout outs too to give out. Last weekend was kind of one final send off for Tom Bonfili. He's currently the head coach over at St. Vincent. Legendary coach in the area. He's been coaching around here for 40. I believe this is his 42nd season. Most of that was at Cardinal Newman. He spent about 12 years over at Justin Siena, 2 over in Napa. Again, legendary coach. A number of I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but multiple 15, I believe, plus, league titles, numerous NCS titles, a couple NorCal titles as well. 863 total career wins, which I believe is number 6 all time in the state of California. I believe he's number 1 or number 2 all time in the North Coast section. And he turned 70, I believe, this year, or last year, or at some point in the season. He's been coaching again for 42 years, but yeah, he's going to be hanging it up at the end of at the finish of this season. Again, now over with St. Vincent. But yeah, I mean, they made quick work of my Greyhounds, on Saturday night. But yeah, I mean, it was a really fun atmosphere just because it was all these old, Newman people who were there kind of, to celebrate Tom, give him his flowers, telling stories. I heard some awesome old stories. And anyway, it was a cool night for again, a legendary coach around here. So we'll definitely be a big, big kind of hole. I'd say left, with his retirement, in the NBL basketball, or in the North Bay basketball community. So, but hats off to Tom Bonfili. Again, great career for him. Again, not done yet. I know, St. Vincent is going to be, tough out in the NCSD 5 playoffs. There are some very, very good, small school private teams, down from the Bay Area. But, I mean, St. Vincent will be a tough out this year. Also, shouts out to 2 locals, longtime graduated, but Sarah Hall and Kim Conley, who are 2 legendary female women's distance runners. Sarah Hall, I believe, is the only 4-time, is one of 3 women to ever win 4 cross-country state titles in high school in California history. She did that at Montgomery. Wow. Yeah, she did that at Montgomery. I believe she was a national champion one year too. Anyway, she's had an incredible prep career, incredible collegiate career, and now as a professional, I believe she's 40, and she's going to be competing in her 8th Olympic trials coming up this Saturday. She'll be going for it in the marathon. That's going to be happening Saturday morning in Orlando. I believe the broadcast starts at around 7 a.m. And, again, they run for about 2 hours. But, again, Sarah Hall has a very, very good chance. I believe she's coming in with a 4th fastest seed time. Top 3 will move on to the 2024 Summer Olympics coming up this summer in France, I think it is.
Yep,
Paris, there it is. So yeah, Sarah Hall, at 40 years old and her 8th Olympic trials has a chance to make it to the Olympics, which would be a freaking awesome accomplishment. So we'll be watching that on Saturday. Also in that race is Kim Conley, who I believe was Kim Conley's Santa Rosa graduate. Also one of these runners who has been just an absolutely. Oh no, sorry. Kim Conley was also Montgomery High. So she was also a, legendary, distance runner in this area. And she's actually been in the Olympics twice I believe for track and field, but she's part of the trials this year. Her goal isn't to win. She just wants to go for the experience. But again, it's just nuts that, I mean, there's something in the water around here where we just produce, this area produces some of the,
best runners,
some of the best female distance runners in the state. And I don't, just for our little nook up here we have in the North Bay. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Terrain.
Got to be the rain or something.
No, terrain.
Maybe the wine. Who knows? Anyway, there you go. Anyway, so
guys.
Just a couple cool things to keep an eye on coming up this weekend in the non-prep sports world. But yeah, we're definitely keeping an eye on that. And then, I mean, it's crazy, February is a couple of days away, but we already have baseball starting up too. SRDC baseball started out, their season over the weekend. And I know that here, I believe the next couple of weeks, I believe in late February, we're going to start having some high school baseball games too. So
totally.
Nonstop, the grind never stops. We'll have you covered with from any season, from any sport. We got you guys covered. So I think that about wraps it up. Hour 40. We're tuning off here, but boys, any last thoughts? I think that's all I got.
Nope. I think we're straight. I think we're good. Good for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys in a couple weeks. By then again, all of these exciting league races will be wrapped up and we can start, previewing the playoffs for you guys. So it should be fun. We'll catch you guys in a couple weeks, but thanks as always for watching and listening, and see you next time.